Right, today I am in the Star Sports Mayfair office with Matt Barker. Thanks very much for agreeing to talk to us today, Matt.
No worries, mate.
Now, you're a professional cricket punter.
That's right.
Can you, basically tell us who you are, but your background and what you do, basically, please?
So I bet professionally on cricket full time. I've done this for 12 years. This will be my 12th year now. Started when I was quite young, just with the idea of making a couple of £100 here and there to pay for the beers and anything that we could find that would be extra would be great. And I just sort of moved up. So I think it was quite lucky that I started so young, because there was no significantly less pressure. So it wasn't to pay the rent or buy anything extravagant. It was just for part-time money on top of what I was doing at the time, which was working in a bar. So
how did your interest in actual betting start?
I think I was pretty standard young English lad. I used to have a tenner on the football here and there. The Saturday afternoons, sit in the pub and watch the games. Sunday afternoons, same thing. Was obviously terrible, like everybody is. Never won any money. And then Betfair came along, and that was sort of a game changer for me.
So was it cricket originally with Betfair?
No, it wasn't. Actually, my first ever bet on Betfair was Clásico, Madrid and Barcelona, and we found out about Betfair, a couple of our mates, and they said, "Oh, you get better odds on everything." And we were setting up accounts, and we were upstairs setting accounts up, and it was the Clásico that night, and put a tenner in my account and saw that 0-0 was 1,000 on the Clásico, and I thought, wow, that's a good price for 0-0. It's usually like 30 to 1. I know it's loads of goals in the Clásico, but I thought that was a good price. So I had a fiver on 0-0 at 1,000 and walked downstairs, and obviously the reason it was 1,000 is because it was already 1-0 to Madrid. So that was my first ever bet on Betfair that went terribly.
So when did it start making you money? How long did it take you to get savvy?
Yeah, quite a while. I think it's a pretty common story, learning the ropes of Betfair and then learning the concept of a lay bet. So learning decimal odds for a start, which wasn't a thing at the time, and then learning about laying horses was the first thing that I did. So I thought I was a genius, because it's easy. You just lay this 16 to 1 shot and you win a fiver every time, and then obviously one wins and you think, oh Jesus. So yeah, that's how I first got into it. Familiarised myself with the concepts quite quickly, and then sort of realised that cricket was a sport that had a lot of ups and downs, a lot of trades that could be made without knowing what a trade was at the time. I could just see that the prices fluctuated a lot. During a cricket match, obviously, both teams look likely to win frequently, and then as a trader, that's a good thing, and that just sort of built from there.
So did you have an in-depth knowledge of cricket before you started trading on it?
Yeah, I'd say so. I played cricket to a reasonable standard in Lancashire. Played for the Lancs under 16 team and town teams and league sides and stuff, so I was quite good as a kid. So I guess I had an inherent knowledge of the sport. I didn't necessarily know everything about the professional game, but I had a good base knowledge of cricket.
And would that give you the edge over normal other punters?
I don't think so. I don't think my knowledge was especially great compared to most people. It was probably marginally better. I think it's more of a logical mind. More numbers make sense in my head very much. I'm terribly uncreative. Can't play any instruments, can't draw, can't do anything like that. So I'm very logical, and I think that a combination of being able to process numbers fast and knowledge of cricket helped in the early stages for sure.
So would you say that cricket is a predictable sport, or have you found a way to crack something that's unpredictable? To the average person, I wouldn't say cricket's predictable now. The other day, Bangladesh beat South Africa, which everyone considers an upset. A lot of people in the cricketing world thought that it was a very close matchup, and Bangladesh were 4-1. So everybody says that's an upset. So that would be unpredictable in our minds. In my mind, it wasn't that unpredictable. But weird stuff happens, like any sport, I guess. So it's not.
it's certainly not predictable. But I think from my perspective, it's about weighing up the chances of something happening versus the price of that chance happening.
So do you ever bet with bookmakers pre-match, or is it all done on the
Yeah,
exchanges?
no, I do. I used to bet a lot with bookmakers, but as I've gone on this sort of journey, obviously well publicised, people limiting and closing accounts, and then you have to find creative ways of getting your bets on. I live in Australia, so there's no shops like there is here. So if you walk down the high street, you can bet with 5-6 different bookies in a shop. Over there, there's only one. So you can't get bets on in the same way over there as you can here. And obviously online, I get limited very fast. So I used to bet a lot with bookies. I do it a lot less now, just because it's so hard to get on.
So the same problem in Australia for limiting. There's no minimum stake that you can.
Yeah, not yet. So there's minimum bet rules for racing in Australia. They have to bet you to lose $2,000 per horse, which is fantastic for the racing guys. But obviously, I think it's in the offing, but it's nowhere near there yet.
Okay. Do you think that bookmakers make more mistakes pricing up cricket than they do other sports?
Probably not. No. At least back in the day, I know that there was some very shrewd odds compilers. A few friends of mine are odds compilers for bookies, and they're intelligent lads. I do know that sometimes bookies will employ someone that doesn't have an inherent knowledge of the sport. They're just a computer whiz or whatever, and then they'll trust their algorithm or whatever to price up markets. But no, I would say that bookies tend to price up at least the main markets quite well. There's definitely some edge. For example, I hardly ever back a top batsman that isn't an opener in a limited overs game. So I think that bookies tend to price their market a little bit too evenly and not weighted quite heavily enough to the openers.
So are there any particular bookmakers you think are exceptional pricing up cricket as opposed to others?
Nah, I've no idea. I'm way out of the loop over here now, to be honest. I know Bet365 are sort of the market leader in cricket. They have more markets than anyone else. They tend to take bigger bets than anyone else, but I don't know that they are any better than anyone else. There's a couple of bookies over in Australia that are really good. Like they'll let you on, they'll let you have a crack, they'll trust their traders, which is good, but I don't really know over here.
Now, I think it's generally accepted with the horse racing that the Betfair SP is about the most accurate reflection of the true odds you're going to get.
Yep.
Is that similar for cricket?
It's a good question. In test matches, it's a lot less liquid than any big horse race. So that's obviously open to manipulation with not too much money. Whereas at Epsom the other week, you'd struggle to push a horse anywhere with astronomical amounts of money. So I think that the more liquid a sport, the more accurate in theory the price is. I think the edges tend to be in play rather than pre-play, because there's so many statistical analysis that you can do pre-match. There's ground analysis, team analysis, player analysis. So bookies and punters put all of this stuff together and they come up with a price, and it's usually not far wrong. But then as soon as the game starts, then obviously punters and bookies have to think on their feet a lot more, and there's a lot more scope for sort of looking for an edge, attacking a bowler or taking on a batsman, and that's a very small part of the game. But you could back a side for 20 minutes based on taking on specific players on either side, not necessarily backing the side to win the game. You're just backing the side in that period of time to be a shorter price than they were when you back them.
Now, do bookmakers or the exchanges get caught napping at all when the conditions change or when something happens?
Yeah, I'd say so. Again, it's sort of experience. I think a lot of this is experience. So, day-night test matches, for example, no one really knew what was going to happen with a pink ball under lights, and then suddenly it swung around corners and batsmen couldn't play, And the first couple of day-night test matches, obviously everyone was caught by surprise because no one really knew. But then what tends to happen is, it's like anything, when everybody knows the outcome, you're almost better off fading everybody else. So everybody knows now that the ball swings at night in test matches. So you're almost better backing against that, because the prices go so far, because everybody thinks, I want to be on the bowling side. Whereas the edge would have been before everybody knew that they wanted to be on the bowling side.
Now, how fluid is your betting going into a match? Would you make a firm decision about who you think is going to win, or do you just let things unfold and bet accordingly?
Yeah, I think I do best when I don't have any preconceived ideas, because what happens is you tend to get stuck in these ideas when the game starts, and fundamentally, as soon as the first ball's bowled, your opinion doesn't really matter about what's going to happen. You have to just base it on what is happening at the time. So I have opinions pre-match and I have bets pre-match, but I try not to let them influence what I'm doing during the game.
And how do you prioritise what markets you're going to play in?
I play on the most liquid markets usually, so I'll usually just bet in the match odds markets, the team that's going to win.
And what would you think, for your personal betting, the best format of cricket to bet on, and why?
So that's interesting. When I first started, I found test matches the easiest to read. I found them the easiest to make money on. But as I've progressed over the years, I've realised that it's all to do with how much money you make per hour or per period of time that you work. So I do a lot less on test matches now, simply because it can take 40 hours for a test match to settle, so you might have to put 40 hours of work in, and that's with no prep. That's just while the game's on. T20's 3.5, and I can make a similar amount of money on a T20 as I can make on a test match usually. So per hour, it's way more worth my time to do 2020 cricket. But the flip side to that is, for someone that isn't experienced, it's high octane stuff. Like a ball can change the entire game, whereas with a test match you've got a lot more time to think and recover. The markets move incredibly quickly in a 2020.
And what sort of level are we talking on the game?
I work in sort of 5 figures now, but I could have sort of medium 5 figures on a game, and then another game I could have like a couple of grand or less. I think one of my edges comes from only being involved in the market at certain periods of time. I think a lot of people are involved far too often. They run positions too long. They have a bet for the sake of having a bet. They have a bet at the first ball or whatever. Like the World Cup at the moment, every game's 8 hours long. There's no reason to be involved in the first 20 minutes if you don't want to be. So I think one of the things that I do really well is not bet for a long period of the game.
So would your ultimate aim to be winning whatever happens? Is that how you would try and work it?
Yeah, I try not to judge it on that. I try and just make as many good decisions as possible, and then the outcome takes care of itself. Like, so many people have asked me stuff like, do you have a certain target in mind per game? And that's so stupid, because if you were trying to get to 500 quid and you make 500 quid in the first 10 minutes, why would you stop? It's my career, it's my job. I work during the cricket, and if I was 500 quid down after 10 minutes, I wouldn't turn it off. So why turn it off from 500 quid up?